Until the Stars Burn Out by M. Romero. Chapter 1. Death and Fate. Seasonal flowers, bursts of color with temperatures in the mid-50s. Seoul, Korea's Incheon International Airport, bustled with thousands of travelers. In a well-orchestrated dance, a sea of human bodies at various speeds moved through arrival and departure security ports, custom counters, and automatic check-in lanes. A barrier of staff employees eyes security conveyor monitors and body scanners. Two women, accompanied by 3 bodyguards in suits, are headed towards Terminal 2 check-in area. Both women adorned with high-end jewelry and dressed in the latest fashions. The older woman, 15 years senior, still, for her age, had a figure to die for. Their styles dictated an aristocratic status. Trailing behind, the men pushed their luggage, and behind them, a woman carried an infant. When the women came to stop, the younger woman rushed to kiss and nuzzle the child being held by the nanny. In a fit, the older woman pulled her away. Grinning, she waved and blew kisses back at her child. "Take good care of my baby." The nanny smiled as she lifted the child's arm, waving goodbye at his mother as everyone moved on, leaving her and the baby behind. Once at the automatic check-in counter lane, the younger female took the lead in inputting their flight information, scanned their passports, and received their flight tickets. The older woman praised her while the bodyguard snickered. The older woman's eyes narrowed at them. Quick, they straightened. Afterwards, the women departed excited with their passports and tickets in hand. The younger female happily hugged her documents. "For some reason, something keeps nagging at me about leaving," the older woman proclaimed. Curious, the younger female leaned in upon hearing this piece of news. "Why? Everything has been taken care of, hasn't it?" "I know he made arrangements, but still, something feels off." Her moistened eyes narrowed, glancing at the passerbys, before her focus returned to her companion, who rambled on. "Anyway, who says exes can't get along?" "What?" The younger woman placed a hand on her arm. "Isn't it absurd? Here we are, on our way to paradise." "I'm surprised he even agreed to let us go together," the older woman stated, and then the two thought for a moment. A dimpled smile reached the younger woman's eyes. "Forget it. We're out for fun, remember?" "Yes, fun. Away from the old goat." "That's right. Previous ex-wife?" The younger woman pointed at her, then herself. "Current ex-wife." "Do we have time to stop at the lounge before boarding?" "Let's hope. But look ahead." Their sights fell upon the long line of people which stood before them. It appeared getting past the security gates would be nearly impossible. Some of the travelers reached in their pockets, others took off their shoes, and still others emptied out their carry-on luggage in the plastic security bins. "The 3 of you can head back. We're fine from here." A slight nod from the 3 men acknowledged the order given as they walked away. The women observed as the men vanished into the crowd. Their focus returned to the body scanners ahead. Even though the line continued to inch forward, patience was neither's virtue. It was evident the older woman's thoughts consumed her thinking. What perfect gift could she find and bring back to her precious son when she heard her phone ding? She pulled it out of her coat pocket and checked her message immediately. She blushed. "Look at this." When the younger woman eyed the contents of the phone screen, a warm smile lit her face. "Such a loyal child." "The heavens blessed me, only because I ended up with an evil husband." The women nodded in agreement, then continued their wait. In the pilot's lounge, a small group of captains awaited their travel destinations, all quietly sat reviewing their flight plans. One captain had just completed his review and filed his plan with air traffic control. Out on the tarmac, the first officer prepared to perform a general inspection of the Incheon inline plane to ensure everything stood in good order, but was inadvertently distracted by the familiar faces of the maintenance crew. The men gathered, while a separate crew loaded food supplies onto the aircraft. "What have you been doing lately?" a crewman questioned. "We heard you were headed out on this flight." "Getting back to work. The wife just had a son," the first officer revealed with excitement. "Congratulations," another crewman offered. "By the way, this baby's already been serviced." "Making my job easier. I appreciate that." "We'll have to make time for drinks," a third crewman added. After some time of camaraderie, they patted each other on the back and shook hands in a farewell bid. The first officer checked his watch, then skimmed his walkthrough, afterwards boarded the plane and headed straight for the cockpit. The aircraft's turnaround time normally allowed for refueling and perhaps restocking, as well as possible downtime, which for this liner now shortened. Even though the metal tube had previously stressed its tail joints with bouts of sudden turbulence experienced on the previous 2 trips, maintenance had rushed the plane to its next destination. When she looked at the time again, "It's been 45 minutes, the younger female complained as she eyed the other impatient people ahead. Both simultaneously glanced down at themselves. Their faces rose and eyes met with an almost "I told you so." Antsy, the younger woman rubbed the front of her legs, then alternated lifting them in a stretch. "We should have worn flats instead of heels." The older woman refrained from answering in hopes of a few minutes of silence. On reaching the front of the line, the younger woman rushed forward. Her petite, bamboo-like body painfully danced on her toes and gently placed her designer bag into the bin. Security watched amused as she then tiptoed over to the body scanner, twirled around, and exited as if she had just performed some great feat. The older woman looked around, pretending she didn't know her, and placed her bag into the bin, then sauntered over to the machine. She stepped in. Immediately, security measures were set off. The guard signaled to her. Displeased, she returned to the other side and walked through again. The younger woman giggled as she collected her purse at the end of the conveyor. "What did you bring, a bomb?" There was a sudden standstill. All eyes fell on her. She froze. Nervous, she hugged her purse as she felt her throat tighten. Her steps in an awkward dance almost caused her to tumble back. "It was a joke!" An over-exaggerated chuckle escaped her lips as she recovered her balance. "Seriously, it was a joke!" Her head shrunk between her shoulders, embarrassed as her face cringed. Only angry glares beamed at her. The older woman interjected. "I'm wearing an underwire, if that helps." Everyone resumed their roles as a female security guard moved in and wiggled her fingers at the older woman, signaling her to step out of the scanner. She did. The guard, using a wand, performed a quick body check that cleared her. With a sigh of relief, the older woman reached into the bin to retrieve her bag. "I must have lost my mind," she mumbled to herself, then reunited with her companion. "That was not one bit funny," she scolded as she walked past her. "I know," her lips pouted. "I'm sorry," she begged, and on her aching feet rushed to catch up. Fierce, the older woman looked at her, shook her head, then looked away as her pace picked up. "Hurry up, we'll miss our flight." Unable to stop at the lounge, hasty, they made their way over to the boarding gate 29, only to find passengers seated and waiting. "Have you been here long?" the older woman asked a gentleman. He glanced at his wristwatch. "About 20 minutes. There was a bit of a delay. It shouldn't be much longer." He smiled at her. She responded with a nod and then took a seat next to her companion. The younger female sat fussing with the contents of her purse. "Sister, why didn't we travel by ship?" Her eyes scoured the ground. "It would have taken months longer to get there." "Yes, but it would have been more comfortable." She became restless as one hand kneaded into the other and a somber look took over. "Sister, I can't swim. Have you not learned of all those catastrophes by sea?" "That could never happen. You were born with great fortune," she attempted to cheer her up as a weak smile spread across her face. The two women, without another word, sat quiet for a short time as the older woman took off her coat. She began fanning her face and pulling at her blouse. "What's wrong?" "Just a bit warm." "Warm?" The younger woman looked around. "It is fairly cool in here." Just then, the now boarding announcement brought smiles to all in the waiting area. They gathered belongings and hurried to form a line. Travelers displayed their tickets at the plane's entry, and a stewardess signaled the location of their seats. Incheon Inline Flight 841 scheduled to land at Daniel K. Inouye International Airport in Honolulu.